Right. Yes. So again, thank you, Dirk, for joining me on the 7th episode of The Feminine and the Masculine, A MasterHeart. In today's episode, we're going to talk about soul deep connection. So welcome again.
Thank you so much, and thanks for counting the number of episodes. I love it to be the 7th. It's special, and it's definitely a special topic, and with two special people. So, and a lot of special people watching this, the audience. So I can't wait.
Agreed. Thank you. So when we start waking up to the fact of how important our relationships are in our lives, and when we start our healing journey, each and everyone their own way, we start realizing how important it is for us to have connections where we truly feel connected at a very deep level, at a soul level, at a heart level. So first, to start off, what does that mean to you, Dirk? What does that relationship, when we say a soul deep connection, a soul deep relationship, what does that concept mean to you?
Yeah, I always love your deep questions, diving right into it. And I personally believe is that when we experience that, that's when we are truly connected to our true self, to our higher self. When we begin to see the reflection of us in someone else, when we can feel that connection, because anything that we project out into the world, and especially first into our minds and our hearts, that we are not deeply connected, is a lie, because we are very deeply connected. But then the confusion often comes with, the stories and our culture and everything, how we then have to behave, or we have to love, or we need, it becomes conditional. But I think recognizing that the divine, part of the creator lies inside of us, and helps us connect everyone with one another. I think that's the first step to realize. And that is special, but that has been always special.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing this, Dirk. And I hear you say that this is something we allow to happen, right? This is not something that we create. It's like we are coming back home to that, knowing that this is how we are already connected, right?
Yes, and 100%. But I also love, and I hope the audience also feels that they can feel that between you and me. But especially it makes it special for me always, and such a joy to connect with you, because you are very present when you say, and this is very beautiful, I heard you say, that means is that you want to understand basically what I'm saying. And that is already part of the connection. And that seems to be rare these days, because usually we are already preoccupied, maybe asking other questions, but you want to understand what I'm saying. But yeah, the allowance in itself is already the connection, and anything that gets in the way, I think, brings noise in that beautiful signal.
Yes, I like that metaphor. It brings noise. Yes, definitely. Thank you for sharing this. And I guess you just gave us one tip to cultivate a soul deep connection, which is listening with the intent to understand someone. So thank you.
Yeah, I do. The only thing can be tricky is that a lot of people might say, yeah, I would love that. But I've been hurt in the past, and I'm not so sure if I'm going to open up to another person again, because it's too tricky. People could take advantage of that part of me, and therefore they often close off.
Hmm. So you're bringing us to the next question. What does it require from us individually within ourselves, with ourselves, to start cultivating such connections? What kind of work does it require from me too? Because we all have that need, Dirk. I see it with my clients, I see it with my friends, I see it with, you know, everyone I meet, how there is this longing to experience a connection that is, yes, intimate, but it's like at a very, very deep level where people feel heard, they feel seen, they feel appreciated, and like the most importantly, to feel seen. And this is what I feel with you, Dirk, because for example, I love it when you tell me when I'm writing something and I'm sharing something and you are reflecting that back to me and you are telling me about how my passion is showing up in this piece of content. And so I feel seen at a very deep level. My energy is seen, my passion is seen and is appreciated as well. And so that gives me a very deep satisfaction. It does make me feel safe. It makes me feel loved. It makes me feel appreciated. And I think that this is a need for everyone, not just myself. Whatever is the relationship, it is very important for us um, to do that. And but yet, does this require me to take some action on myself first?
Yeah, no, to get back to your first question, and yeah, it's also true what you're saying. And well, you said what work is required, and usually I don't like to think of it as work, but I know what you mean, of course. I believe that if we truly begin to recognize, to understand how deeply we are connected, and when I do my coherence hotspots, I always talk about the fact is that, and that is also partially answer to your question, can you deeply connect? Can you feel your heart? And maybe we can do this later actually together. Um, can you feel your heart? Can you feel the breath flow through your heart, where the awareness goes through your heart, where you make a connection with your heart automatically? And if you want to have the science backing it up, automatically we are deeply connected, what I call to the heart of all hearts, our cosmic heart, the creator, so to speak, because we are a piece of the creator. And when we keep doing that, then anyone that comes into our space, we feel that deep connection. We can feel that. And sometimes we might say like, hey, it's not well received, or people don't reflect that back to me, but that is usually more of an ego-based thing. But if you feel that deep connection and some resonate on that same frequency, like we do, and then we say those things where I feel seen, I feel cared for, I feel loved. And some people are not on that frequency, which is okay. And then if we truly stay connected to that, then it's automatically, I don't need that energy around me. I want to surround myself, but it happens almost automatically. And that's what I love so much. So energy, because energy is not, you cannot stop that. And it's almost like you have a bathtub full of water
Mhm.
and you have a tiny little ink drop and you drop it into the bathtub of the water and you can say, well, I tried to separate it. I tried to keep it or whatever. It's impossible because within an hour it has spread everywhere and you cannot contain that.
Mhm.
And that's what I often feel. So again, it's a long answer to your question, but um, if you say what work is kind of required, is I would say really stay connected and amplify the energy in your heart because you're deeply connected. And then automatically, as a tuning fork, you will find people naturally that resonate on that frequency. It's like putting a magnet on your chest, so to speak. You're automatically drawn to those who vibrate a similar frequency, and that's what you want, because even though other people might not be at that frequency, as you know, as no other, is that if we amplify this together, then more and more people will be affected without even knowing it in the so-called story of our lives, but they can feel it in their hearts.
Mm. So I hear you say that the gateway is within, that establishing that connection with others, the road, taking that path is moving inwards within us. It's that gateway is within our hearts. And so what I also understood from what you said is that what we have as a preconceived idea about what these connections have to look like, that's nothing, it's not like anything we have in our minds about what these, because we're always saying, and we hear that a lot in the spiritual community, is that, you know, we have a very small group. They are our soul tribe, and they are like the only ones who we can connect to at a soul level. And this is a connection that has to be like over months or years. But what I hear you say is that I can connect within a second of connecting to my heart, and then I'm automatically like I can't help but connect to the heart of all hearts, and through that I am connected to people I may have seen for the first time in my life, and I may not see again, but yet there is this, for a split second, a heart, a heart-based connection.
Yeah, yes, you heard that really well. And so I often say to when I work with people, you know, with the former military that I work with who are so traumatized, I often say, I'm not really interested in your story because I'm interested in the person behind that story in your heart. I want to understand, I want to connect with your heart. And then they are often very shocked. And so I know, for example, you and I, we have a heart-to-heart connection. I can feel you, but I also experience you through my filter. And we often talk about the different the culturals, you know, and the filter of the masculine and feminine, you know, what this is also all about. But apparently in our case, the filter is also matches, you know, we also enjoy connecting through our filters together.
Mm.
But sometimes with other people, um, we can feel with anyone, if you're really connected to your heart, excuse me, and then you connect with their hearts, but it could sometimes mean is that you do not really connect through that filter, that worldly filter. And that's okay, because if we get stuck there, and again, we do not have to connect with everyone, but if you really connect with someone on a heart-to-heart level, and there is also that filter that we experience each other through, is also aligned and matched, then it's actually really beautiful. But first of all, you know, if we can radiate, and if you talk about and all the work that you do, where we contribute to the betterment of the world, then we want to first establish this heart-to-heart connection. And then people walk into your path where you say, you know what, actually, I really love her energy, or his energy, but I also actually love the way she thinks or her mind or, you know, but I think it starts in the heart.
Mm.
For me, that's at least the one thing. And that sometimes can be confusing in the way, you know, I have been raised where I say, you know, I can really love you. And then people say, well, you're not supposed to say that, or you're not supposed to do that, or you're not supposed to hug someone that way. And I say, well, I do love you. And that's often the confusing part, you know, in this how we have created this story.
I think that it is very empowering, but also, like you said, a little bit scary for us to decide to move beyond the box that culture has created for us and societal norms have created for us as to how relationships look like and connections look like. And even in the spiritual community, we have those boxes as well. And so to realize that I can um, have that impact on someone within a split second, and have this positive impact on someone, and not having without me having to make like a major effort, but to just connect to myself, and through that I'm connecting with others, where they can feel seen, even for just um, a few moments. I think that this is something very empowering, but also humbling, because it gives us a perspective on how much we can impact the field around us, how much we can impact others around us, and all that happens through, connecting to ourselves. And so to put that into all of what you have shared with us into more perspective, I want to refer to the article that you wrote about becoming whole. You shared it in your Substack, and I would like to remind our audience to subscribe to Dirk's Substack newsletter. In your article, you said that one of the 5 tips to becoming whole is cultivating genuine connections. Would you say that genuine connections are soul deep connections or heart-based connections?
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's the essence of who we are. We're born to socially connect. We're born um, to deeply connect with one another. We see it often in crisis situations where we naturally gather and we support each other, we help each other. Um, so that is so true. And thanks for mentioning, my article. What I also want to say to you is that when you talk about it can be a little scary, to go beyond the box of our culture with that, what we feel, then I would say, and this is why I love to connect always with you and do these talks, because you are an incredible inspiration, as a woman from where you live in your culture, and show you're fearless in so many ways. And that is one of the parts that also attracts me to you. Of course I love your heart. I love connecting with your heart, but I also love connecting with your mind, because you show people in a very gracious way that it's okay, to break sometimes these barriers, or to move outside of that box. Not because we necessarily want to be a rebel or any of that. It's more like there is so much more than that box of our culture. And it doesn't invalidate anything that we have been taught. It's more that we want to expand beyond that. And that's what I also meant in my article. Then you and therefore you need someone like yourself to be able to say, you know what, if Randa is capable of doing that, then of course I must be able to do that. And that's how we set the example. We give other people permission to do the same.
Yes. Thank you for mentioning that, and for saying how we're connected at a heart level, but also at a mind level as well. And recently I've had this a challenging experience in a relationship that I thought it was a soul deep connection and a heart-based connection, but I started feeling that I was only accepted in that connection is if I fit a certain criteria, if I fit a certain role. Outside that role, I am not accepted, I'm not appreciated, I'm not seen, I am disregarded totally. This part of me is just not accepted. And so, yes, there is love at a heart level, and it's not that I can only be friends with you if you agree with everything I say. That's not it. It's about seeing how this part of me was rejected. because if it's like disregarded in this way, I felt that this part of me was rejected. I'm only accepted within the confines of the role that was set for me. And so out of integrity and out of self-respect and self-love as well, I decided to break free um, from that role. And so what I wanted to ask you, Dirk, how do we um, play that part in soul deep connections or heart level connections? And you mentioned the filters where, you know, we love these people and we connect with them, but okay, we don't have to agree with them, but how important is it for us to feel that I'm accepted for all that I am in that relationship? I don't know if I'm making myself clear, but I'm still under the effect of that experience. It still hurts me a little bit, and um, sometimes I feel I'm like disappointed, or yeah, I think disappointment is how it felt for me. But is it am I being selfish if I want to be, you know, accepted for all that I am, all these parts within me? Like, you don't have to agree with everything I say, but that something that would sabotage that relationship?
The interesting part is that when you try to explain to me, you know, in many words, and it's not easy for you to try to verbalize that, what you feel. I knew already in the first sentence actually what you meant. And that is, I believe, also part of the heart-to-heart connection, which I love. And I think, like, you know, you don't have to explain it to me because I know. I know. And of course I know, you know, we have the audience here, so it's different. I personally believe is that it's part, this is typically part, you know, of our conditioning, that we love with conditions. But that's not the true love. That is a conditioned love. And it's very tricky. And I was just, as you were explaining it, I didn't want to be rude, but I was looking something up or quickly because I wanted to maybe read something. I was in an interview quite a while ago with Don Miguel Ruiz. You know, he's famous around, especially for the Four Agreements, the book that he wrote. Um, and we were talking about that, and he explained it actually in very beautiful words. So I want to read that in a minute, if you allow me to. It's not too long. Um, but because that explains it really, really well. But I personally believe that it all again comes back to how much do you value and love yourself? And how much are you willing from this place when listening, when you say to me, this is what I heard you say, what you're doing, you actually have to go into your heart to really connect with me and feel what I'm saying. This is what I was just saying to you. I felt you, what you were trying to say. And then hopefully we are curious if you know, you're in this relationship and you feel that you are only loved in a certain condition or in a limited way, then there is a lack of curiosity, I would say, because I love it, you know. I don't think it happens too often, but if we do not agree on something, if I love you and if I feel connected to you as my friend, then I want to understand where you come from. And usually what we then do is say, and we've seen it, especially in the last few years, as you know, we say, no, you know, you are not talking about what I believe, and therefore I will reject you. You need to actually you need to show me what my expectation is of how I see you, and then, you know, it will be fine. And that is, of course, not working. Um, but the beautiful thing is also is the more we are deeper, we are connected to our hearts, the quicker we feel those instances in a connection where we say, really love this person. It's a very beautiful person. There's a lot going on, but I also sense something else. And there's this little voice that says, a little alert, so to speak. And sometimes we don't want to listen to that, or sometimes we don't see it, or sometimes we think, well, maybe it's worth it. And then in the end, that little voice or that little alert probably already told you, maybe keep it at a certain level where you can be really good friends or so, but not more than that. And it's very intuitive based. But I have it here, that little part, and it's a long interview that I had, but it's exactly, yeah. So we're in the middle of the conversation with Don Miguel, and he says it's important to understand that we now see the core of the problem. And the problem is that we learn to love exactly the same everybody else loves, the way our parents love, the way our friends love. We love with conditions. I love you if you let me control you. If I can control you and you obey, then everything will be perfect. If you speak the language I like you to speak, if you think the way I like you to think, if you dress the way I like you to dress, then everything will be fine and we can always be happy. This is how we love everybody, but everybody also loves us in the same way. They love us if they can control us. If we become what they want us to become, then they love us, and otherwise they will reject us. Wherever we go, we see the interaction between people and how they love each other. They love each other with conditions. The real problem with this is that we learn to love ourselves in exactly the same way. We love ourselves with conditions, and we have to be, the way we wish to be in order to accept ourselves. And this is how we create all those intentions. And then, the anger is there. And so the question, and I have the same question sometimes as you ask me, it says, am I therefore conditional? Because I am actually expecting this person to be in a certain way, or is this person conditional? And so it's so interesting. And I've been kind of struggling sometimes with that. I say, well, I think the person is conditional because I have to be a certain way, or is it me that is conditional because I expect this person not to be conditional? So it's a very interesting way. And so the only thing that I believe is that when we again go back into our hearts and we connect with our hearts, at some point, people walk into our lives and we say, and this is what I like, from my former mentor and friend, Dr. Wayne Dyer, where he says, be open to anything and attached to nothing. And that's a very hard one for most people. Some people might say, I think I can be open to anything. But then the next one, attached to nothing, that's a very hard one. Because if you tell me I love you and I love you, I want to hold on to you and I don't want to miss anything. And therefore, what we're doing, which is often not natural, we miss out on all the other beautiful things because we are so busy holding on to something that we love, and it's often fear-based. So it's a super long answer. And I don't know if it makes any sense to you what I'm saying, but I want to reflect a little bit how sometimes complicated it can get.
I think that uh, it does take courage to ask ourselves this question that am I the one being conditional because I'm expecting the other to not be conditional, or and also at the same time being very compassionate towards ourselves, hearing what you said, Don Miguel mentioned, um, realizing that this is how we have been conditioned. This is the normal within our nervous system. This is how things go on autopilot. So it does allow us to extend compassion to ourselves and others as well. But what kept coming to my mind when you were mentioning this was, it's like there is a price we pay to be authentic, to be ourselves, to be connected to our hearts. And I know that you have in many instances had to pay that price with losing a lot of connections where you felt not accepted for all that you are. And you mentioned that in one of your articles, um, how you know, you're always speaking your heart, speaking your truth, and you're not stopped by, you know, the fact that you are going to ruffle some feathers and some people's ego is going to be triggered by that. And so, as a result of that, people would not want to connect with you anymore. And so, it seems like there is a price we have to pay for being authentic, for being connected to our hearts.
Yeah, I was thinking about the price that we pay. And then I think if we really learn to be very much in the moment, and this seems to be a little bit unworldly, by the way, I realize what I'm saying now. But if I really so much enjoy this moment, you and all the moments that we've had before, and let's say something happens that I feel really hurt or whatever, and I could get disappointed, but that doesn't take away from all the wonderful moments that we have shared so far. And so if we really can be in the moment and say like, yeah, things are changing myself, you know, I'm changing, the world is changing. I want to be authentic to myself and the connection that I have with life. And therefore, it's not probably not selfish and it's not also not me that's necessarily conditional when I look for something in another person. It's more that these are my values. And so if a person vibrates at the same frequency of my values, then it becomes very natural. And then the natural part is that we want to hold on to. This is definitely a next level where even though we feel that deep connection or the deep love and something happens and this person disappeared out of our life, we might be hurt in that, but at the same time, we also have this part of this person inside of us. And I almost feel it a little bit, and you know about this, you know, very well, especially recently, when you lose someone who you love so much, you know, like your dad, you know, or like, you know, my mom and dad. So you could say, you know, I miss them so much, of course, but there's also this deeply rooted connection that is never gone. And that is also really beautiful. And that is beyond everything. It's beyond the conditions. I was once meditating with a woman who I was working with this woman and she had lost her son. He was 18 years old and he died in an accident, and but she had a very rocky connection with him. He had addiction problems and all of that. And in the middle of that meditation, she started crying. And I said, what made you feel so emotional? And then she says, my son was here. And she says, I've never had this most incredible connection with him. I didn't even have it when he was my son in this lifetime. It was more beautiful now when he came to my heart without the filters. And it kind of broke my heart in a beautiful way because I thought, if we can be with one another like that without the filters and just feel each other's essence, and then we could say, yeah, but you hurt me by saying that. It says, well, it's also an ego-based thing because now I say something to you and you said, you should not say that because you hurt me. And I said, well, actually, I didn't mean to, you know, I just was myself. So can we see the noise again of that conditioning? But focus. It's like driving in the countryside in your car, you know, and you're trying to tune into that radio station, but it's like cracking and you don't hear the music. And at some point you tune a little bit more. And then suddenly there's this beautiful like stereo coming through your speakers and you want to move your body because it sounds beautiful and it sounds so crystal clear. And I think that's what we can do with the heart when we really start tuning it and then that noise start disappearing. Or we can to choose and say like, you know, I really don't like your noise. You go away. You're in my way because I know there's a beautiful signal behind it, but that's not what we do.
Yes. Dirk, you make this concept, although you say I sound otherworldly, but throughout this talk, throughout everything that you have been mentioning, you do make that concept feel and sound practical, and you even help your clients, and you help the people who attend your coherence hotspot. You share with them techniques through which they can themselves experience that connection, how we tune into the intelligence within our bodies, because we are equipped with this intelligence within our bodies to sense that, because it's not a connection that we can comprehend at the critical thinking level at the brain. It is something we can sense with our heart, with our body, with our energetic field. But there is a big science behind that you also share in your coherence hotspot. And so anyone in the audience who would like to experience that, to learn, you can attend Dirk's meetings, weekly meetings. But I think that it would be a great way to end this talk by giving our audience an embodied experience of what that would feel like.
Yeah, and let's then, I love that. And so I always love the way we roll. And so instead of banging on your radio in the car and says, hoping that the signal will be better, just let's start tuning then that knob by knowing the science, understanding why that dial is there on the radio for the purpose that it is. And that's, of course, our hearts. So, yeah. So, well, of course, I would assume your audience is very familiar with the concept of heart coherence because that's what you often teach. Why don't we just take a breath and just slowly, don't ask yourself whether I breathe right or wrong. When you left your mother's womb, you knew how to breathe, and so there's a natural thing there. And while you're breathing, maybe just feel that air move. Feel it move through your chest. And as you feel it move through your chest, maybe you can feel all of the essence, the beauty that Rhonda shared, that I replied to. Maybe you can feel that as an essence, as a truth. Because most of the things that I share do not come from me personally, they come from somewhere else. And can you stay connected with your heart? Can you really stay connected to the breath flowing through your chest without trying to do anything? Is it possible for you to continue to feel this as I'm talking briefly, but also especially to get out of your own way? To just feel the essence of the connection with your heart. Maybe feel the gratitude for tuning in. And speaking about tuning in, feeling that you can tune in to your heart. And without losing that connection with feeling the breath flow, just know that when you create a coherence in your heart, there is a frequency that is exactly the same frequency as our Mother Earth that gives birth to everything. And when we align with that frequency, we speak the same language. And that's how we can feel each other. That's how we can feel truthful and real connections. That's where we can feel the love behind the noise. That's where we choose not to focus on the noise, but to focus on the signal that's behind it. Because the more we focus on our hearts, the more we focus on the signal, the purer it becomes, the clearer it becomes, and the better it feels. Because we have physical bodies and it's okay to feel that love with our bodies. And the more you practice this, the more it becomes a natural thing to go to. And the more you let go of these ego-based concepts and you say, I want to live from my heart, because that's what I choose to do for myself, and therefore for the bathtub, the metaphorical bathtub that we live in, you know, because I know I'm spreading that, not ink, but light. And I think that's the antidote to all of our struggles. And in our hearts, lastly, I want to ask you, all of the people who watch and watch later this, I want to ask you if you can feel the care, the compassion, and the love for Rhonda, who is reaching out in so many beautiful levels, who is a torchbearer. And she is very infectious with that, as you can feel. So let's bless her in that way as well, because we all need that from each other. Just be there, caring, loving in a genuine way. That's what I want to thank you for, Rana. I want to thank everyone who's watching, because we are one big family.
Thank you so much for this lovely, juicy, enjoyable experience where I truly felt your love, your care, and I know that our audience will experience it at the same level. Um, Dirk, are there any final thoughts that you would like to share with our audience before we end this episode?
I don't think so, because sometimes whatever comes through, it makes me a little speechless. And again, I want to thank everyone to take even the time to watch this, and to take also have the intention to stay connected to your heart. That is the most important thing. If you don't know what to do, just become quiet and connect with your heart. So I think that's the main message that I want to give.
Thank you for
And
making it sound so easy and so practical and so doable, because this concept may feel a little bit like too much for us. And with all of your explanation, you and your wisdom, you made it feel like very down to earth, very practical, something that we can experience, and just with our intention and focus on our heart and our breath. Um, it is like built in. You're telling us that this is built in within us. This is it's lovely to experience, and you're empowering us with all of that. Thank you, Dirk.
if you ever doubt, you know, just go into the forest and ask a tree, and the tree would say, you know, life is simple, but the seeker of life is often complex. And so don't forget that.
Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing your wisdom, your knowledge, your experiences with us. And to our audience, if you have any questions about anything that we mentioned in today's episode, please do not hesitate to reach out to Dirk or myself. You can leave us comments in the comments below, and we will see you next month in another episode. Thank you, Dirk. Thank you, everyone.
Everyone, love you, Randa.
I love you. Bye bye.